Hello, everybody. Welcome back. You are listening to the dulcet tones of Breaking Down Security. I'm Brian Brake. Ms. Berlin, Mr. Betcher back with me. We're at full strength again. Woo!
Yay!
Yeah. Yeah. What happened last week? What was that? Election security? It was just me and Ms. Berlin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Betcher had a family thing. It's okay.
Done from a hotel room in West Virginia.
Yep. I'm a benevolent dictator, so I allow my people to, go do things with family.
Free range.
Yeah, free range, right. That was a really interesting show about election security. I didn't know what to expect.
I know you were very nervous about it.
I didn't know what to expect, and I like to keep things apolitical, and that guy was, he thankfully gave us enough stuff. So, yeah, if you didn't get a chance to hear how at least one state in the U.S., America here does election and election security, I suggest you go and listen to that one. That was Jeffrey Mio? Jeremy Mio. I got it close. It was G-E.
Pretty close. Yeah.
J-E. Yeah, it started with J-E. Yeah. So what were you doing in West Virginia on a bed with Jeremy Mio? Sorry, it was a hotel room. You had to find
Brian.
I'm sorry, you had to find a nice quiet place to record, but you were in West Virginia doing something.
Yeah, we were at Secure WV. So I keynoted that, and I did the first time I've given this talk, which is the second part to the Hackers, Hugs, and Drugs talk that I've been giving for like a year and a half. Mm. And then I also did like this small version of our mental health village there, which is just the stuff.
Okay.
Like,
did you have a speaking track at your mental health village there too?
No, not at this one.
Okay, so it was like a loungy kind of decompression area.
Yep. Just the smaller ones are no talks and no like massage therapists and nothing, like no discussion groups or anything. It's just like all the crap I bought off of Amazon.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
You said the second part. What's in the second part, and do you have to know the first part?
Yeah, I must have missed that part.
So the first part, so in the second part, I did like a small recap, like the first 8 slides or something, or a recap of the first talk. Mm-hmm. And then because the first one kept on going over an hour because of all the stuff that I had learned, and I just kept on adding to it. And then I found out like I probably could add more to it for another talk. And then I announced like our nonprofit that we made and what our plans are with that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't get to hear about the long-term plan, so I knew you'd set the nonprofit up and everything, so that's cool.
Yeah,
maybe we can talk about that in the future.
We're still doing all the paperwork because it takes a lawyer and accountant and a whole lot of work. Right. To set up a nonprofit. And we're like, I just got my bank account today.
Oh, wow.
Like it's a very long process.
It's really happening. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, we want to offer like, there's this place called, what is it? They do like mental health first aid classes.
Okay.
So they do like an 8-hour class, and we want to offer that kind of stuff as well as like shortened versions of that. Yeah.
Very cool.
So
Very
those
cool.
are our plans for right now.
Okay. Mr. Betcher, real quick, have you seen anything with the holiday season coming up with scams at your office, doing malware or anything like that?
It's mainly still phishing emails.
Oh, really?
Right. I mean, that's the main thing.
Yeah. You mean like you have
keep in mind that these criminals will send out millions of them, and they're not really, a lot of them attacking, or most of them attacking individual companies.
Right.
But they will take what they have, find out what companies they are based on, the email address or something. Mm-hmm. Once they pop an email account and or a computer, mm-hmm. and they'll sell that to anyone who is hacking a particular company. Mm. So if we're, going after a particular bank, you can just buy computers, zombies for that bank.
Goodness.
Right. They'll sell those to you. They just keep them on hand. And so that's pretty much how it works.
Right. Okay. All right. So somebody did ask today in our Slack when the next BDIR was coming out. Do you have a date for that? Is it going to be the end of this month or first of the year?
I think we're going to record in the next week.
Okay.
So it should be out in less than 2 weeks.
Awesome. All right, cool. I'm looking forward to that. I actually caught the first 5 episodes when I was driving around. So anyway,
I've got a lot of good feedback.
Cool. All right, so we need to get on to our interview this week because he's drinking all my eggnog, and I really like me some of that eggnog this time of year. So we were really lucky to get this gentleman on. It's very topical. It's actually still going on, according to him. That it's an active event that is still happening. For those of you who keep up with the internet and keep up with the news of the internet, there was a I don't want to call it it's not a breach, it's not anything bad. It's just the developer decided he didn't want to do something anymore.
He broke the rules.
No. You know what? I'm kind of on both sides of the fence on this. I don't think he broke the rules. I think it was just a societal norm that was expected to happen.
Unwritten rules.
Right. There's unwritten rules. There's, things that you kind of want to go by.
Etiquette.
I get it, though. Like, there has been several projects where I just wanted to say...
Yeah. Don't worry. 'Tis the season for airing of grievances. Yeah. Well, let's bring him on. His name's Adam Baldwin. He's Director of Security for NPM, which stands for Node Package Manager, part of the NodeJS project. Welcome to the show, sir.
Howdy, it's great to be on.
Right on. Okay, so before we get started with the all the other stuff, maybe you could tell us a little about yourself, how you got to become Director of Security for such an interesting project.
Sure. So this adventure started a while ago. I'll try to keep it short, but 7 years ago, I actually made my first contribution to open source. It was a pull request to this new package manager, npm, to fix a security bug. At the time, I was operating a Lift Security, which was my security consultancy, doing application security and things like that. And so we worked with a company that was building node-based applications. And so we wanted to understand the security implications of using a registry and this JavaScript thing and this package manager thing. And so we started looking into it. And of course, being testers, we found some bugs, and we were, at the time, it was an open source project. Fast forward, probably a year later, we started the Node Security project, which was if you're familiar with I think RubySec, a similar vein, we started about the same time, maintaining a database of vulnerabilities of that we found in modules, right? Okay, we audited a module, we found a vulnerability, let's keep track of it and build some tooling so that you can find these within your dependency trees in your project. A little while later, NPM became a company. The registry was down more than it was up, and it needed some funding to stay afloat and to get developers behind it and to get some focus. Either it was going to fizzle out or it was going to continue. And so they incorporated. NPM Inc. became a thing. Not many people know that NPM is actually a company.
Yeah.
So beyond that, one of the first checks NPM wrote, we had a good relationship with them already, was to Lyft to do an audit of the registry and to start involving an external auditor and keeping the registry secure and trying to focus on security. And that was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Starting about a year, 2 years ago, started having conversations about becoming acquired, really doubling down on their focus on security, because we know that it's a thing. We know that it's something that we have to focus on for our ecosystem. And so in February, we got acquired, announced in April, and then that's how I basically became Director of Security at NPM. Lyft got sold off, and now we're here. I brought my entire team with me. So that's where we are now.
Wow. Okay. So what does your team, how does it function and work with regard to the larger Node.js community, or is it just specifically for the NPM, the Node package manager itself? Are you in an advisory role, is it an active role? What does it take?
So there's a couple of bodies within the Node ecosystem, right? And so we kind of think of npm encompasses a little bit more from the JavaScript perspective, because we have a lot of front end things that get built. There's a lot of server side things that use Node, right? So you've got server side JavaScript, which is Node. You got browser based JavaScript, and npm kind of sits above all that. But Node is run by the Linux Foundation, the NodeJS Foundation, and so that project is governed through that. About a year ago, about 2 years ago, we donated the advisory database to the foundation. So the Node Security Project donated that advisory database because I was seeing vendors, creating these sort of like small niched vulnerability databases and not donating them up sort of into the larger stream of things. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to create a vendor agnostic place where they could donate that. And I thought that would be a foundation. It turns out that backfired. Not many vendors are really collaborating in upstreaming things.
Right.
NPM endeavors to, we're going to do that. But we don't, that really never panned out. And so that was the start of, when we donated that was the start of the security working group within the Node Foundation, managed by a number of great people. And so they're taking on, they're trying to triage vulnerabilities for the ecosystem just as we are. So there's a bit of a bifurcation of efforts there, but you've got the Node core team, you've got the security working group, and there's a number of other technical steering committees and things like that within the Node Foundation. And then you have NPM, which is taken on the responsibility of keeping the registry running and putting time and money and things into that ecosystem. So we feel a great deal of ownership over that ecosystem to try to keep it secure and keep it available, right? So yeah, that's kind of how we fit in terms of all the players in that space.
Mm-hmm. And you're only one of the Node type of Node package managers. There's other ones like Bower and Volo and Ringo.js and all those. Do you interact with counterparts at those organizations, or is NPM really the only one that is as organized and put together properly?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily that they're not put together properly or anything like that, but we're definitely, we've got funding behind us, we've got a team behind us, and so that's we've got resources to try to do this right. And there's other package managers that are niche there. Mm-hmm. Nothing, I don't think, that's at the scale of NPM. I mean, I think this last week we did 9 billion downloads, 11 million users, 7 million tarballs, 854,000 all packages. Yeah, a lot of. I mean, it's the scale is ridiculous, and so they all have those challenges too, right? And I can't really speak to what they're doing, but
yeah. I just wondered if there was any kind of coordination or anything for like security vulnerabilities or anything. So
not yet. We haven't had the need. I think that most likely they could probably downstream our advisories and it would probably be fine.
Right.
But we haven't had that need.
Okay. Ms. Berlin, Mr. Betcher, have you seen or read the bug report that came through on this guy's package?
No.
Okay, that's fine.
We could go over the incident. I mean, that would be great.
Yeah, let's do that.
I would love
definitely.
that. Yeah, we have the show notes has the link to this gentleman's GitHub repo where he, all of this happened, and you can read all 1,200 plus, replies and things. So, how did it come across whenever it happened? When it came across your desk, what happened? What was the initial report look like?
So we've got a pretty good, process for handling malware. It seems like every so often somebody figures out they can publish malware to the registry. It's fairly, common. We see it often. So this hit our desk the Monday after the holiday, right? So turns out I didn't triage vulnerability reports on Thanksgiving, so I didn't see the initial report that came in. So we did get it. We did get a notification Thursday, and then I hit my desk, steaming hot on at about 9 a.m. So I got in, get the report, see it, basically at that point it's like, okay, is this legit? Is it not? We have to make a decision because we're going to be doing a destructive action against the registry, which normally we don't allow mutable actions. So we have to decide what this impact is. I mean, immediately first of all, we had a lot of community eyes, right? So there was already a lot of triage happening in that GitHub issue, which was great, right? To see the community sort of jumping in there. But we still didn't have things decrypted, right? So this was this encrypted payload that we had to work through triaging. So immediately though, we're like, okay, encrypted payload, this is not good, right? Like initially, it took us all of what, a few minutes to sort of make that decision of like, all right, let's just burn down that malicious module. So we did that. We can always put things back, but it's always a pain. So we took that out of the registry basically immediately. And at that point, I issued an advisory for that particular module. So NPM, so anybody on a modern version of NPM would see that when they try to install their dependencies for their project or ran NPM audit, they would see, hey, you've got this finding in your project. Well, so the rest of the team kind of dug into doing basic malware triage, right? Like trying to decrypt that payload, right? Well, it was using a package JSON in a Node project has a description field, and so they were using that description field, and specifically they're using a description field out of a environment variable that's only populated in a certain condition. And so not only we had to figure out what that description was, we had to figure out, okay, what are the conditions in which it's populated. So did a brute force across we have all the descriptions of all the packages in the registry. We figured out we tried that. Maybe it was targeting a specific upstream package. We got lucky, and the community actually identified this as well. It was a secure Bitcoin. I don't remember the exact description. We got lucky because the application that was being targeted, which was Copay, used that description. Somebody forked their module and published it to the registry. Otherwise, if that wouldn't have happened to have been there, we might have not gotten lucky. And then we would have had to go to GitHub and be like, all right, let's find all the JavaScript projects, see what they were targeting, go further, go deeper, go to a brute force, which may have been possible eventually. But so we got lucky there. And then beyond that, it was, just going through the motions. But there was that was kind of our response process. We also took down Event Stream 336, which was a module that depended on that particular one. We took that down because people's builds would have been broken. So, we decided to take that one down, even though it really wasn't malicious at that point. We also, so that's basically our triage to that point. Was that. So that happened relatively quickly, a few hours.
So was there a way to, did you actually take the entire package out? Because it seems to me that one of the reasons this threw up such a big, ugly thing was a lot of people's packages depend on this package. And that seems to be kind of a growing trend with a lot of these things, that when Node.js comes up in the news, it's like this one package that several thousand other packages use either is no longer there or has some kind of issue. And then we've got examples in the story in the show notes. You can read them if we can go over them if we have time. But did you freeze it to a current a previous version, or how did you guys resolve that? Because a lot of people were having issues with building at that point, right?
Yeah, so it's gonna break. Anything that's gonna rely on that is gonna be broken, right? And so what happened was, how the malicious module got into the registry. Basically, you can consider it like developer burnout as attack surface, right? I don't want to maintain this module anymore. I don't use it anymore.
Right.
It's a very common practice to hand that off to somebody in the ecosystem that looks and acts like a legitimate developer. And if you're burned out on maintaining modules, you're not going to do a background check, right? There's no standard for this. Like how do you prove someone's intent? And even then, it's like a pen test, right? It's a moment in time analysis, and they could turn into a shitbird later. So, basically, started with an SE, attack targeted, and they added this as a dependency to this one particular version. So if you happen to pull that in yourself, it would be broken. So I prefer, we got two sides there. You want broken builds, or you want, some malware running around your network, right? I'd rather have broken builds and tell your devs to change a dependency out,
right?
Which they could just pin to a different version, so it's a little bit of a developer burden. And I'm to be frank, I'm not sure, how we can get away from you have a responsibility for what you require. You have a responsibility for what libraries you consume and use. And I don't know, you see a lot of companies and a lot of individuals throwing around, complaints about that. Nobody's checking their depth trees. This was out there for months. Nobody's watching what's sliding around underneath in those depth trees.
Right.
And to be frank, that does that frightens me, right? Like that's that whole supply chain, right? That depth tree or that dependency tree that frightens me, and I'm not sure what we're gonna do to address that. We can make ownership changes, breaking changes, like kind of a Semper major, or we can lock things. But at some point, it's all about tooling. It's all about process. So, we're working on some tools that can hopefully make this better for people to understand what's shifting around under there, to surface those things. To maybe a security team will see those events and say, "Hey, that looks suspicious." Can help notify us, because at the velocity we're moving, our team can't handle that, right?
Right.
Security team of 4 people, it's not gonna, we can't audit everything that goes through there.
So you just triage the more important ones. Do you flag the more important ones, or if you do, what is the criteria for what's considered quote unquote the more important ones?
So we've got some. We don't have. So no, the short answer is no, we don't. We're working on systems to do that. Behavioral. Things like what files does it touch? The standard malware sandboxy type behavioral analysis. We're working on that. But then again, how do we surface that to users? Because a lot of projects, like you said, they bring in 2-3 modules, and then those bring in a handful more. And that sort of dependency iceberg, instead of dependency tree, it's more like an iceberg.
Yeah.
Those so a security team ends up getting handed a project, and you're like, well, audit these dependencies. And they're like, yeah, but there's 3,500 individual pieces of software that we need to audit.
Right.
Like, what do we do? And security teams, like, they don't have the bandwidth either, right? So they're looking at npm audit, they're looking at the known vulnerabilities, and they may do some basic checks themselves. But beyond that, what do you do? So I want to surface these signals. Was the publish done with 2-factor auth enabled, right? What changed between these versions, right? That's the best I can do, is offer better tooling at this point, and hope that companies are going to do their diligence with auditing things.
Yeah. Otherwise you're going to be auditing the entire internet.
Yeah.
I thought it was possible. So 7 years ago, when there was 12,000 modules in the registry, I was like, we can do this. We can crowdsource auditing.
Yeah.
And now there's 850,000. So that ship is sailed.
I was telling people at work about this. I was like, did you know that there's 850,000 Node.js packages out there? And
I had no clue there was that many.
I didn't either. So
the saving grace in all this is actually there might be an obtainable, there is some attainable auditing that we could do. There's only 520 packages that account for 50% of the downloads in the registry.
Really?
Right. And if you count their depth tree, we're talking 3,500 packages. So like, that's possible.
Yeah.
It's a lot, but so it's not perfect, but again, it's covering, 4.5 million downloads, 4.5 billion downloads.
Yeah. We've talked about this on the show before about supply chain security. We've talked about the CIS top 20, and it's like, one of the first things on the top 20 security controls is know what hardware is in your environment, know what assets you're running, and know what software is in your environment. And I'm like, I was like, oh yeah, it's going to be real simple. You just go down and look at all the modules you're using or whatever. And then I'm like, how do you audit even, a couple of hundred of these things on a regular basis, unless you're using some kind of automation, which I'm sure there's some company out there that's more than willing to sell you some kind of, stove, crappy kind of, thing that maintains, something. I actually have a link link to something I heard on Risky Business that they sell that exact kind of thing where it's like, oh, we'll manage all your modules for you. The one thing I had about this, and in the same news story that talked about it, they put a severity of level 10 on this, and it was a company called White Source, just for you guys to find it in there. They put a CVS. I don't even know if it's a CVSS score, but according to them, they called it a 10, assuming out of 10. And it seems to me that whoever this Right 9 control guy, and I assume you guys have killed any kind of access this person had for future, development or
throwaway account, but
okay. I guess that's true. Anybody can become a developer.
Yeah.
Published over Tor, so that's great.
Oh,
right?
Great. Yeah. Okay.
So should we block Tor?
So it wasn't on accident.
Yeah. No, it was definitely done maliciously. But this is a fairly specific attack. I mean, it's not like somebody's trying to does Node run in any specific part of the infrastructure? Is this client-based systems or server-side based systems? So
it depends on what's being built, right? So typically the environment you're going to see it in is in build systems for front-end applications. Okay. And you're going to see it running on the server. HTTP, like typical REST APIs. That's a very common application of it. But you're also going to see it on desktops with Electron apps, right? Like Atom, or I think Atom's still Electron, but so like those type of things. Atom Editor. Yeah.
So, it just seems like this was fairly specific, like he was targeting a certain type of Bitcoin wallet. So he knew that there was a vulnerability in that Bitcoin wallet. And he was like, well, the only way I'm going to be able to get to it is by, hitting, keep going further back in the chain to be able to insert something in. And he found a weak link in this particular chain, which would be, let's just email developer and ask him to take over.
I mean, it's a valid attack. The Copay repository repos, it's online. You can go look. You can run npmls and see the entire dep tree. Yeah, and then you can go from there, right?
Yeah, I spent a good 3-4 hours reading all of the comments, and they were just coming in faster than I could get it. And like Ms. Berlin said at the beginning of the show, 15 days ago, the owner said he emailed me and he wanted to maintain the module, so I gave it to him. I don't get anything from maintaining this module. I don't even use it anymore and haven't for years. Yep. So if the guy hasn't maintained it or he's using it anymore, I mean, this was great. I mean, we hear about browser plugins where it's like, there was an ad block plugin, I think, that something similar, that somebody paid a couple $100,000 for that, and then all of a sudden started, adding stuff to the whitelist so that certain ads would get through.
This wasn't even, there was no payment. This was free. This was ask, right? This is a starting point. We're going to see more of this, right? You want a 2019 prediction? We're going to see more of this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And for the majority of the people who don't have Copay Bitcoin wallets, they didn't notice anything wrong. There was no problems.
And that's what we saw. Like a lot of the articles cite, it had 11 million downloads or whatever, right? Or whatever the number was. And that's just not accurate, right? Like the risk there for those users. Now, it could have been that they targeted all those, like that they probably would have, it had a heck of a botnet, right?
Right.
But they didn't. They chose to do something different. And so given this particular set of conditions, the risk for the majority of the users is actually quite low. Mm-hmm. Anybody in that Copay, basically anybody building the Copay app, they were the ones that had the bad time. So if you were a developer, and it wasn't targeting them, it was targeting, it was trying to get something into that build process to get it out to the end user. So they were targeting a build system to get it out in a release, right? That was the target.
Right. That was interesting. So
I mean, the person installing it should be the one that's responsible for doing security checks, right? I mean, it wouldn't be you since there's 815,000.
Yeah, but it's just some dev who's like, okay, I need to install my environment, npm blah, and then blah picks up about 500 dependencies, including this one. So he would have not even bothered to check.
I guess 500's less than 815,000.
Right.
True.
Right.
So that's where the responsibility, right, lies. Where so you can pin versions. There's a package lock file that sets all the versions, and so You can so you can audit a state and be like, all right, it's cool, we're good. And then you can run npm outdated and it'll tell you what needs to get updated. And you can then go look and see what you could effectively go audit that chain too. It's not a fun process. It's not an easy process.
No, but if it's important enough.
For things like that, but also, I guess Copay is probably, I think it's backed by a company or whatever. So, hopefully they'd put those resources into it, but, you know what it's like in security to be resource starved. And we just kind of, just go ahead. It's probably fine.
Yeah.
I do that personally, but I don't recommend it.
Yeah. So did you have to notify the Copay folks at all, or were they following this? They
got a notification from the community before we were able to even reach out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the one beautiful thing that we have, the ecosystem has, is a lot of eyes. We've got 11 million developers that are a lot of them jump on and yell and scream at the internet, but there's a lot of really good actors that took the time to do some analysis. To let people know, to try to get things fixed. They don't get a lot of credit, right? Open source, Yeah.
Yep. So I hate to use the term "never waste a crisis," but now that you've got people who are kind of spun up against this, are you leveraging any of the newfound outrage to help start doing kind of dependency audits or looking at this? Because I mean, this is just the one you know about, right?
Right.
And these turnovers happen fairly regularly from what I understand. I mean, this one was kind of an edge case where you go and look at the guy's GitHub and you're like, yeah, this guy looks, shady as all get out. He just, he doesn't have,
the first commit they made was a legitimate update.
Right.
And the other thing is that there's a bunch of other repos associated with this actor, as we later found out, and some other modules. And when you look at that behavior, they're trying to do the same thing, right? So this is a pattern we're going to see, and so figuring out how to, like you said, pain creates change.
Right.
If we can help with awareness, maybe you'll just kind of double think when you go to hand off a module to, all right, can I hand it off somebody I know? That's not always scalable, and we're going to work on tooling there, but for sure we're I'll use it. I'll use it all day long to help drive, good hygiene, right?
Right.
Yeah. Turn on some 2FA, right? Mm-hmm. Or build tooling internally to motivate engineering or whatever. Like that's for sure.
Yeah.
So how does this work again? You have, as a developer, a module that you're responsible for. And then if you don't want to do it anymore, you have to find somebody to hand that off to, or just quit. You
don't have to. You could just abandon it, and that's the other thing is
there a password or something to okay.
To publish.
There's one password, so a developer can.
It's permissions model. Code, it's a permissions model. So they effectively. Ran like npm owner add and added that person as a maintainer or collaborator, similar to where you'd give like a commit bit on a repo, right?
Right.
Okay. This is like the publish bit on npm, right? So you get the ability to publish new releases on npm. So you can basically put build artifacts out there. So there's not a central password, but it's like a access control, right? So you have a user, you have permissions to do certain actions.
Right.
So there was some other comments by the original owner. He said that he had transferred publishing rights to the unknown dude, but kept the repo under your username. Well done, mate. He was being ironic, not ironic, but sarcastic as hell. And the owner said, I tried to transfer it to this guy, but GitHub errored because they'd already had a fork of it at his own place. If you guys feel strongly about this, why don't you volunteer to maintain and contact NPM support? So this guy's been apparently a longtime developer, this Dominic Tarr guy.
Dominic's great.
Yeah. Did he just he obviously tried to do it, but because the other guy had a fork of his module, then he couldn't make the proper changes. So at what point did the one that Right9 Control have become the official version, or did it just not get transferred properly and stayed with Dominic's repo version?
So we have a little bit of a GitHub and npm, like there's no real correlation there, right? I can publish, and we see this happen where people will do an npm publish from a directory that like a working Git directory, and accidentally have some keys or tokens in that directory, or maybe some test files or something that, like, found a 5 meg IRC log in one the other day, that they didn't mean to be in there, right? And so there's no correlation there. So as soon as, regardless of whatever the GitHub repo state was, this actor could just npm publish whatever content they wanted on top of that as soon as they're given that the publish bit. Now, they do have to bump the Semver range. So the Semver, they had to do a patch or a minor or a major bump. And so effectively what they did was they came in, they did a release that looked like they were bumping dependencies, which they were. They actually did a release, they bumped a bunch of dependencies, did some maintenance, and then the next release they added in a dependency called flat map stream 0.1.0, which was actually a non-malicious module. But the Semver range that they had within event stream 336 allowed for patch releases, as patch releases came out, to just auto bump, right? It'll pull in the latest patch release. And so then they released a version of flat map stream 0.1.1, which then started getting brought into those.
Okay.
These Semver contracts matter in that situation, which is why version locking is important.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. So there was another article, because I was doing some looking around. They said roughly 76% of Node shops use vulnerable packages, some of which extremely severe, and open source projects regularly grow stale, neglecting to fix security flaws. That's just kind of what's going to be inherent in the system when you get something this large, right? I mean, you're gonna have, and this is kind of the downside. People are like, "Oh, open source is great because you get many eyes looking at the code." Well, this is the other side of it, where it's like, I don't want to maintain this anymore. I don't want to, I've got other things I got to do that actually pays money, and then I can't get back to this. Do you guys, for lessons learned, because I'd like to find out if what you mentioned some automation and stuff. Are you looking for things that are perhaps going stale, or getting reports about this is now has a new package owner, or I mean, what are you guys doing to maybe do a little automation to make this a bit more secure? Yeah. So I mean, lessons learned, like
from the whole situation, like, companies need to pay attention with drifting in their dependency trees. We need better tooling around that. So I've been drafting up some ideas around that. Really it's just how to surface that data, right? Because it's potentially a lot of things, right? Do I just give you, just raw, like, here's the DNS request the module makes when you install it, here's the connections it makes and the files it drops, which is like a malware sandbox. Like, how many people really find that useful? It's a balance between, because we have a lot of developers using it. We have a lot of like enterprise users using it as well that have security teams. Who do you build that tooling for? Do we build it for the developer? Do we build it for those enterprises that have a more critical need? I don't know. But other tooling we've talked about is breaking change, like a major Semver major when an owner change happens. Of course, it's not perfect. There's edges there, but maybe we could say, like, you can't publish to minors and patches for like past things if you changed owners, right? Like you have to major bump, and that's a pretty big signal to developers that they know there was a breaking change and something went down. It's not perfect. What they would have done is they would have bumped it. They would have waited. It would have been a longer con, right? That's all that would have been. So it's not perfect, but we could do so there. So really, it's about getting those signals within the ecosystem and getting a baseline, and then figuring out how we can surface that data to developers and to security teams.
Cool. Very nice.
Do you think there is a well, okay, first of all, there are security tools out there that look at accounts, logins, activity, network connections, kind of brings it all together heuristically and says, okay, this guy is outside of the norm. Somebody needs to look at it. Is there room for that in this build process where you get a relatively new, and this is just an example, relatively new developer may have done something out of the ordinary? Do you see that happening here in this case and in general?
I think that there's room to add that technology, to add to the insights that we already have at the registry, right? We have all that data. That data is not surfaced to anybody else, right? We know the IP addresses of where a publisher happened, right? We know if it was over Tor. We know, normally you publish from Austin. Why are you publishing from, Germany, right? Like this just out of character things. We've got a lot of data that we could correlate. We're not doing that yet. And it's definitely on my mind to do. I don't know the right approach necessarily to do that, but
well, there's obviously people who have done things like this before. May just be a new avenue, right? And there are a lot of people interested in this type of data, and we're not talking about blocking things that are like you can't publish today or whatever, but there could be a series of red flags that go off where you can get some extra eyes on certain things.
Yeah, that's the plan.
150,000 now goes down to maybe a dozen at that point.
Yeah, that's definitely where my mind is at, is taking those events and correlating them and trying to get some useful signals. It's a lot of data. But you're absolutely right. That's where my mind is at, and just figuring out how to actually apply that is.
I have a question.
Right, and tools have been done for this for large enterprises too. There's a ton of data out there, and I haven't gotten my hands on them, but I hear that they work pretty well.
Does it rhyme with funk, Mr. Betcher? Is it a logging tool that rhymes with funk?
Well,
or
no, these are applications that look at these particular events that fire off.
Typically, you take the event, throw it in, your log trunk,
right,
and then you correlate them, right? So something on top of that, right?
Is it
something on top of that? Yes.
Is that a NodeJS app as well? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just poking the tiger.
There's probably one that's not maintained sitting out there.
Yeah,
it's self-referential.
The interesting thing about this, and since we this came up, we have several clients at Leviathan that we do engagements for, and the minute I notice that they have any kind of JavaScript framework, we always put something in our reports that you have vulnerable packages, probably. We always put at least an info warning in to have them check and audit their dependencies, because if they're not doing it already, they need to be notified or warned about these kinds of things. I don't know if it's overkill or not, but it just seems like something that should be logically done in terms of housekeeping if they're not doing it already.
This is something else I was going to bring up. What's interesting is that just because you have that vulnerable dep doesn't mean a vulnerable code path is being called. That's the other sort of like auditing work that needs to happen. Even if npm audit says, hey, you have a dep down here. So I think that's the next generation of npm audit. We'll see deeper insights with that. Is the actual.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, is the actual function being called that's vulnerable, and is it tainted input or whatever?
Right.
Yeah, because you could wait, and if you don't have that level of visibility or staff on hand that knows how to look for that kind of stuff within the packages. If you look for the type of activity that it's going to, if it's doing something with the Bitcoin wallet, right, that it's not supposed to be doing, then you can look for that instead, as opposed to in the beginning when you actually get the update.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
I mean, it's all
the actual
layers,
ability, but the action that it's performing afterwards.
right? Well, it's all layers, right? So we, even if we don't protect it in the registry and happens to get in and gets down there, hopefully one of those organizations has, again, one of those fancy correlation engines on their end, and they're seeing that behavior, right? So hopefully it gets caught eventually. It's usually what happens. It makes enough noise. They get greedy enough.
Yep.
Yeah, there's always areas to improve.
Right.
Like, oh, look, now my CPU's 10 times what it normally is.
Right.
Right.
Would you, I guess you could set up things like filters for like, all of a sudden this dependency's had a massive change in, in code or can you turn up that kind of, I guess it just requires you to, look through the output as you're building your environments, but,
we've got some of that detection capability. We've got, every type of malware that we see, we add pattern searching. So we're grepping through tar balls all day long looking for patterns or executing them, seeing what files they read and write and touch and network connections they make and stuff like that. We just haven't had the ability to surface that to end users yet.
Yeah, I was just thinking along the lines of what companies could do as well. If they, when they're pulling stuff down, they'd be like, okay, there's a message change in, this used to be a 3K package, now it's a 5K module. It's almost 100% larger than what it used to be. Why is that the case? That might be ways for companies to be able to go through, because I know there's security teams out there screaming right now. They're like, we don't know how to fix this. So here's another question. So you said you only have 4 people on your team. Do you take volunteers? So if there's people out there who are maybe InfoSec people who want to help out, maybe have a nice side job or be able to volunteer for some kind of open source project and not do like code. Code reviews aren't sexy either, but you're helping to shore up security infrastructure for a major JavaScript framework. How can they do that? Are you looking for people?
Yeah, that's the challenge with being a company, right? We haven't really done that, and that's the advantage like the foundation has. So, if they wanted to donate time triaging vulnerabilities that come into their program, like the security working group would be a great place. I endeavor to grow my team, so look for job openings at some point here because we're going to be at some point if everything works out. But at the time, we haven't really taken on volunteers, right? But if anyone reaches out, asking where they can start or where they want to do some independent research, I've been doing this stuff for the last 7 years, digging through the registry, looking for things. You find some gold. You find 400 megabytes of credit card data, or whatever, right? So there's plenty of good stuff to find in there. And so I can help somebody build the tools that they need to go splunking and stuff like that. If somebody wants to reach out. So
that would be awful to be pulling down 400 megs worth of credit card data into your own environment to do stuff, or API keys for AWS, or because we know the devs put API keys inside their GitHub repos. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some API keys or passwords or usernames to be dropped in modules. So or packages.
If you pull down all those credit cards, you're not required to be PCI compliant, right?
Yeah, I don't know how that works, but so that was one of the first ones I found many years ago, and it's been a long time. Essentially, they were running tests with their merchant accounts, and so then they delete the data directory of the test data that it pulled down and worked with, and then publish. Well, they forgot once, and so it uploaded.
Is there no maximum size for an npm package or for a Node.js package? Can they really be? I mean, 400 gigs worth of credit card data is going to be huge.
So it's also compressed. So that was decompressed. TGZ, it was fine. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to what the maximum size is. There is a maximum size because of we had people upload DVDs, and things like that. So at one point, so there's been some constraints put on the registry. There's naming constraints. To try to prevent typo squatting with popular modules, or like this name is too similar to another name.
Right.
It's not perfect.
Okay.
It helps.
Put a zip bomb in there.
Yeah.
We've seen that. That blew up so much of my infrastructure.
You mean there's a zip bomb version or like a billion laughs for JavaScript as well?
Just a tar file, right?
That's
bomb.
true. Yeah, that's true. That would work. Okay. Well, let me see. What else do we have here? Keeping up to date on Node.js security issues. I put a couple links in there. nodejs.org/en/security. You mentioned this is great for Node, but you want to stay up with advisories in the NPM ecosystem. npmjs.com/advisories or npmjs on Twitter. Okay. Cool. Yep. And do you maintain the npmjs or is there a separate one for the security group?
It used to be the Node Security Twitter account. That hasn't been too active, so we're just gonna slipstream. Important advisories are gonna come across there, but
right.
The feed, on the /advisories. We also have a reporting mechanism for every package. There's a report a vulnerability button on every package, so you can just mash that, send us some goodies if you seem to find something. We'll triage it and work with the maintainer.
Okay. So this was technically a vulnerability. How do you guys handle that with like CVS or CVE numbers or anything like that? Or do you guys handle things like that internally? Like, okay, this is an advisory, you have a numbering system. How does that work?
We're not a CNA. We've got our own, IDs and whatever, but we request CVEs and the security working group as well. Anything that we'd upstream to the security working group would get assigned a CVE. They work with HackerOne to do that assignment. They're also not a CNA. We've considered it. It's not outside of the realm of possibility, but we just haven't done it yet. It hasn't, it's not that useful for me. So,
right.
Other than when people yell about it, I'll put a CVE in there, request it. But they're usually, it's been a slow process historically. It's been just a painful process to get, CVEs assigned. And that's getting better, I think. But we maintain the advisory, the database for all the other information. If someone's got a, suggestion for how to update content or whatever, we do all that maintenance.
Right. So, Ms. Berlin, you work for a security provider for companies and organizations. Are you going to add this to your list of things to warn people about when you're going through it?
I have to get through the attack matrix first.
Well, I mean, that's it. So, I mean, as fast as some of this stuff gets fixed, I mean, is it even worth reporting? Because, I mean, this was fixed fairly quickly, not just on the Bitcoin wallet side, but also on the maintainer side. And,
we took ownership of the event stream module, so hopefully we can find a legit author for that. The other thing we've noticed, and we've gotten reports of it, is that the major antivirus vendors are flagging on flatmap stream.js or whatever the file is. So they're flagging on that too, which a lot of devs are noticing and letting us know about.
Yeah, because I guess the AV systems are lighting off that this is on their systems, which is probably a surprise to them that they're they have that vulnerable version on there. So,
since this was a crypto mining type operation, would uploading this code to VirusTotal, would that have had any hits initially?
It's a good question. I don't think so, because this wasn't a miner. It worked to with the Copay app to check your balance. If it was over 100 Bitcoin or 1,000 Bitcoin cash, I think it would then steal it. So that's it wasn't mining. So a lot of the flags there for like miners or pulling down a binary that was a miner or something like that, it wasn't wouldn't signal that. I suspect that it probably wouldn't have flagged. But again, I didn't try it. Speculation.
I guess the good thing is that all of this is in fairly plain text, with the exception of some of the encrypted bits, which is why it was able to be fixed so quickly. If it was in a more of a binary format, it might have taken longer for people to break down and get into.
Yep.
Cool. Adam, do you have anything else that you'd like to add? I'm going to ask Ms. Berlin and Mr. Betcher the same thing here in a couple seconds.
No, I appreciate the conversation. This has been fun.
Cool. All right. Any other questions to the rest of the esteemed panel here?
I'm good.
So if okay, in relation to the virus total question, how in the hell would I detect this as an incident responder? What would I tweak to be able to set off an alert if something like this were to happen again? Seems like that's a very difficult thing to do because it could be anything that winds up in there.
That's like alerting on O days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could. Yeah, I suppose in the advisory I could have given you some signals to work off of. Yeah, to check your environments.
Are you talking prior to advisory though, Brian?
Yeah, I'm talking prior to. Is there anything I can tweak that would give me some indication that something might be amiss?
So let's think about another module that was derived based on what we believe to be the same actor. If there's another advisory out there, we'll talk this one through. So it was text QR code, and it was a module that provided QR codes, but it modified crypto.random bytes. So it modified the global crypto.random bytes to return basically a hashed value of 3 bytes. 3 bytes, zeroed out, hashed. So, very low entropy, right? So the point was to get, this was a dependency of another package. And so it wasn't malware necessarily, but it was a purposeful reduction of entropy to be able to, I would say brute force wallet keys, right? Because it was related to Bitcoin wallet app. Again, what's the signal there? I don't know, right? Like it's pretty, again, diffing the modules. You're looking at there's a few signals there related to what amount of code change, right? That was a very dense piece of code, that encrypted payload. Mm-hmm. Again, that could be obfuscated into some other type of encoder that wouldn't trigger that, but they went for it that way.
Yeah, I could definitely see something like Beef or the browser injection or browser exploitation framework or something. You put some kind of payload in on a client side application that somebody downloads and runs in their browser, and you've got a Beef session into somebody's computer, which is all JavaScript. It's all JavaScript based. So yeah, being able to detect these things, Mr. Betcher, is probably going to be the new nightmare for you, I think, from a DFIR's point of view.
What would be useful from your side? Post incident. Let's say we know about it. What is a useful signal to put out?
That was for you, Mr. Betcher.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think.
Like a file name, event ID. Trigger.
Yeah, some hashes.
There's some sort of
hash
certificate that we could sign all these packages with, or blocks of, since it's, I don't know.
Yeah, we've talked about code signing, and again, he handed the author the keys, and so they would have just signed it.
Yeah,
and you would have had to
was signed, and then you rejected that sign, right?
Yeah, you'd have to say, "Oh, there's a new signer," right? Like, and that would be a signal.
But that means you'd have to audit everything. That's kind of like what Apple does with the Apple Store, right? And that Google doesn't really do as well.
You'd have to start cultivating your ecosystem, which means you wouldn't have 850,000 packages for that. That's for damn sure.
I'm crying on the inside.
Plus, you're gonna get a lot of pushback from developers who don't want to sign code. I think actually we've talked about this on the show before too. There was some kind of other incidents that happened where people were clamoring for code signing, or some kind of repudiation that you could prove that came from the person. And there was a number of developers. I don't know if it was in the Node community, but there was definitely pushback. Like, we don't want to be that kind of, culture or whatever. And, it just kind of died down after the media cycle.
It's hard. Microsoft doesn't even sign all their stuff when they push updates. I mean, they compile it. How hard is it to sign everything you compile? Well, they haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, signing it's great. You have to have a way of verifying, and that's in these module trees being this deep. You could have, 900 authors.
Yep.
In this one for this one tree, and it's like, you're going to get those people to do, to do that? No, it's going to be so hard to incentivize that, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but it's going to be quite challenging.
Yep.
But the only thing I could think of is if you sign everything that you push out, and then I guess send out a reject list. If you find something, then say, okay, we're rejecting this particular certificate and then it goes to that one file, right? I don't know. But then again, it would be just as easy to say, all right, take it out, and you guys just update.
Yeah.
Right. And then you don't have it anymore.
Yeah, and that's kind of we're kind of in the balance there. We choose the path of, it's just not in the registry anymore. We're cyber janitor, take it out, and then at the same time, then that kind of gets rid of it. And then I get these requests for, hey, I want to look at that. I want to learn from it. I want to I want to study that. I want to figure out. We got academics wanting can I have it so I can build the machine learning model around it or whatever. So it's like, I don't know. The path we've currently taken is we take it down, it's gone. If you want to, if you want it in the future, you can call in the registry. And typically people have a copy and they share them around. And it's kind of a slippery slope there. So
and it unfortunately we rely on NPM to check these things. And check out the deep learning stuff. That may be a good way. Maybe somebody is up for the challenge. They've worked for a company that's done that. They were the math whiz behind what's going on. Maybe they're up for a different avenue for deep learning.
Come find me.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well,
I said, if they're listening, come find me. I want to talk.
It'd be an interesting challenge.
Yeah.
So, the onus is kind of twofold. It's on the developers and the companies that are actually using the Node environment and the npm packages that are there to go look through the stuff, and you expect the developers to have some kind of idea. So the security teams at the companies should create some kind of automation to be able to, NPM audit or, see what's going on there. You guys are working on security initiatives to, automate some items you've got there. So if people wanted to continue, we're gonna kind of wrap it up here because we're after the hour. But if people wanted to reach out, I work for X big company and we have massive numbers of, Node in our environment. How would they, how could they reach out and start a dialogue with you guys? Or is it, you're just constantly working on the security stuff? Is there somebody else they can reach out to?
Oh, they can reach out to us. Security@npmjs.com is a great way to find us.
Right on.
Just not on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that was a very interesting time to have that happen too.
I mean, it happens, right? Like things get found on holidays. It's just the way it works.
Right.
So
okay.
It was there, for longer than that, but
true.
Yeah. Please
People
leave
wait till holidays or until we're at conferences.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, DEF CON's happening.
Yep. So Adam, if people wanted to contact you and talk about, volunteership or how would they reach out to you if they wanted to discuss with you outside of the director of security role? Twitter's good. Adam_Baldwin on Twitter. DMs are open. Throw all your rage in there or your suggestions or whatever. Happy to chat, happy to guide or direct anybody looking to do research in the space. Cool. Right on. So, Ms. Berlin, if I was a customer of your company, what would you be able to tell me to allay fears?
One, I don't think any of my customers listen.
Oh, that's good. That you should fix that. You should fix that.
And if I can think of a couple that might, but
Okay.
yeah. Well, we're working on a new product that they don't have yet, so that they already know about that.
Okay.
You can't I don't have open DMs on Twitter because that scares me.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can tweet at me or I'm in Slack.
Okay. And it's InfoSystir, INFOSYSTIR. Yep. Cool. Mr. Betcher, I know BDIR's, ramping up, next week, but if people wanted to discuss email phishing or the latest Emotet, infection with you, how would they go about finding you?
Yeah, my Twitter handle is @BetcherPwned, BOETTCHERPWNED.
Cool.
And check out the website, log-md.com.
Right on. I did see a Mr. Betcher sighting on our Slack this week. I think it was when I said, hey, when are you guys recording? And then, oh, no, wait, that was Michael Goff. Michael Goff actually wrote that. So, yeah. No, the one I saw was, are we recording tonight? And I said, yes, we are. So that happens.
I mean, honestly, I've not really been on a whole lot either.
Well, you've been busy. It's cool. I understand. That's why we have moderators that are not us, because
that aren't crazy and helps. Doing 3 jobs at once.
Yep. So, we have a Slack, very active, roughly 1,600 users, 500 or so active users on the reg. We have 30-some channels. I don't know how we ended up with 30-some channels. Some bastard on there just keeps adding new channels for some reason.
Now, those moderators, let me interrupt. Those moderators probably do just as much as we do. They're just more efficient. They're just better.
Right.
I mean, I did kind of steal Megan, though.
Oh,
because she's on my board now.
Oh yeah, she's special. Yeah.
Oh, you had free time? Nope.
She's my CFO.
You used to have free time. It's wing. Yeah.
It's gone. Everything.
Yep. So if you are interested in joining our Slack, where we have a CTF club, which is now on, it's on hiatus for the rest of the month because of the holidays and such, but it will be back at the first of the year. Or, joining our book club, which David Seibuck is one of our moderators, and he also runs the Hacker Playbook 3rd edition. We're running through that. We just finished chapter 3 last night, which is Wednesday the 5th. You can join us. You can send a DM to @Brakesec, BRAKESEC. That's the official podcast Twitter. Or you can send an email to bds.podcast@gmail.com. And you can follow me. I guess I forgotten to mention this the last couple times. I do have a Twitter myself. I'm on it quite a bit. You can follow us at Brian Brake, BRYANBRAKE, us being me, myself, and the other voices in my head. I don't say this often, but I do work for a company called Leviathan Security. So if you're looking for threat assessments, pen tests, or whatever, please feel free to reach out. We don't have salespeople.
We're naming our companies now?
You know what? My last company had tens of dozens of sales and marketing people, and I didn't feel like I needed to advertise for a bunch of people that already had a sales and marketing group. But we don't have salespeople at Leviathan. My boss.
I'll advertise for mine once we're actually up and running. Okay. And I'm not still writing shit.
Right on. You're not. You're never writing shit. So there goes our exploit tag. Yeah. Anyway, so we're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Apple Podcasts. If you find us useful, please leave some feedback. I haven't listened to the Darknet Diaries episode, but apparently, if the people in Bangladesh are listening, please like my podcast or our podcast. Darknet Diaries had an interesting show about how podcasts are getting screwed over by some people overseas who are basically farming likes for podcasts, which is how some of the podcasts are getting artificially inflated for ratings and such.
Ours are all real.
We're all real here. Nothing fake.
Yes, we did an audit of all 850,000.
That's right.
They all signed a petition.
That's right. They're totally legit. Yeah. But yeah, if you're interested, there's plenty of places to find us. We have an RSS where we have a Patreon. If you guys find us, this interesting, like, oh, I didn't know about how Node.js backends work, or, I just thought I'd do npm and, install the thing. Please feel free to leave us a couple of bucks. It, allows us to do hosting for podcast, pays for the Zoom that we use every month on the Slack and on the podcast here. And we have a t-shirt store, tpub.com/BDS store or something like that. Oh God. Well, they don't listen to this part anyway. We do get a little kickback from that. If you want a, limited edition production shirt of Miss Berlin's face, that's a very popular shirt apparently. So.
I saw that again at Secure WV. So.
Oh, somebody did buy that shirt. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Dave, for wearing my face around.
There you go. All right. So, Adam, thanks for joining us. If you have any other, topics you'd like to come on and talk about, or, maybe you're going to, revolutionize how the package manager works, come on and, let us know, because we'd love to talk to you more about Node.js and the inner workings of that.
Well, thanks for having me on. It was super fun.
Awesome. All right. Well, that was it for Breaking Down Security. Have a great week. Take care of yourself, because you're the only one you have. Be nice to one another, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.